Kia ora, I'm Chelsea Daniels, and this is The Front Page, a daily podcast presented by the New Zealand Herald. You might look on Facebook Marketplace for a new couch, a lamp, a rug. But what about Class A drugs? Or how about a ghost gun? A Herald investigation has revealed at least 56 listings were circulating on the site offering magic mushrooms, cannabis, and in one case, LSD across the North Island and top of the South. And that could be just the tip of the iceberg of illicit sales on social media. So how do we get on top of this? NZ Herald senior investigative reporter Michael Morra has been looking into this and joins us today on The Front Page. Michael, how did this first capture your attention?
Well, I was contacted by a Bay of Plenty man who essentially said there are multiple listings on Facebook Marketplace for drugs, and these listings then linked it to encrypted Telegram accounts. I contacted some of these dealers on Facebook Marketplace, and you'd go to the encrypted Telegram account, and then from the outset, from what it looked like, it was just magic mushrooms being sold. But when you went to the Telegram account and asked for a full menu, that you were then supplied with a list of many other A-class drugs.
It's interesting that they've chosen to advertise mushrooms, but that's actually a Class A drug in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's potentially because those peddling these drugs think that mushrooms is a more innocuous term than perhaps using cocaine or methamphetamine or whatever else. But it seems clear that the ad for mushrooms is just a gateway to then offer the visitor any other form of drugs that they want. Now, I was unable to verify whether in fact these drugs could indeed be purchased, but the very fact that these are advertised on Facebook Marketplace, a very, very open platform, would suggest that if you indeed were a legitimate seller, you could do this because it exposes a loophole. Regardless of whether these people on Marketplace are scammers or legitimate sellers of Class A drugs, it shows that on Facebook Marketplace, you can do it and get away with it.
Right, so what do these listings actually say? They've got like mushrooms and then it has what?
I've seen listings that included drugs for sale, including pictures, images of magic mushrooms, cannabis, tabs of LSD, gummies for sale as well. And then when you link to the Telegram account, you're supplied with a full menu of any type of drug you can imagine, including ayahuasca, mescaline, cocaine, MDMA, etc., etc.
Wow. And so Telegram, I'm assuming they use that because it's encrypted, one of those apps, eh?
Absolutely, yeah, end-to-end encrypted. So like I say, I believe that these very open advertisements for mushrooms are essentially to get lots of eyes onto a product, an illegal product, to then lead the visitor to this other menu and the supply of other drugs.
It took me all of about a minute this morning to find one of these ads on Facebook Marketplace that you told me about. And it didn't take very much like snooping as well. Then I saw another one. Then I scrolled down a little further and I think I counted up to like 40 of them. And all of them listed either today, yesterday, within the last couple of days. I mean, is it just a case of whack-a-mole out there?
I think so. And I mean, that's what really surprised me about this situation. I mean, you know, police and other authorities have said for some time that we're seeing an increasing number of drug sales on social media. But what surprised me about this was just how open and blatant the dealers were being. And when I initially was reviewing Facebook Marketplace, I counted a total of 56 different listings from the far north right down to the Tasman region, Nelson and Picton, all saying we've got various drugs available and you can pick them up or we can deliver. So I was pretty surprised by that. And of course, I got in touch with Meta, which is the owner of Facebook. And after sending several links to them and screenshots, they said they would then act to remove those illegal accounts.
Who else have you spoken to about this? I mean, I can't imagine the New Zealand Drug Foundation would be too happy about it.
They do think there are obvious inherent risks with this. They talk about the risk with magic mushrooms, for example, is, in the CEO Sarah Helm's words, the risk is identification of the mushroom, right? If you get the wrong one and you don't know what it is, that can be very risky. But in general, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms is not something, she says, that could have fatal consequences. But she says the other issue with Marketplace, of course, is that it exposes people, including young people, who go onto these sites to material that they otherwise would not be exposed to. That is one of the concerns. The other key concern of the Drug Foundation, of course, is that they are an entity that is set up to promote and give information about drug harm reduction. That is one of their core things. You know, you see them talking about drug testing at festivals and promoting information about new and emerging drugs if they're, dangerous or lethal. To put that information out on social media. Some of the information they are promoting is funded by the Ministry of Health, by Health New Zealand. And what we know is that, surprisingly, some of their drug harm reduction messaging is being blocked by Meta because they flag it as problematic. And that is, in Sarah Helm's words from the Drug Foundation, ironic, considering that you have dealers supposedly openly promoting the sale of drugs online.
Isn't that incredible? I mean, I suppose if you type in, I'm going to sell a gram of cocaine, it'll pop up with a flag being like, oh no, cocaine. But mushrooms, I guess, may be a word that is more innocuous, I suppose. Maybe that's why.
Well, that's right. And I mean, my original source for this story said that he was really frustrated with Meta, the owner of Facebook, because he reported dozens and dozens of these listings over the course of several weeks. So you can go to the listings and click on little three dots and go down and report this as a dangerous or problematic listing. And what happened? He says absolutely nothing. So, of course, when I contacted Meta, perhaps because they risked being embarrassed by a journalist, they said they were taking action to remove some of these listings. But the interesting thing, as you point out, is, as you have discovered this morning, these listings are still up there. It does raise a question as to whether Meta is really prioritising the detection and removal of illegal drugs on its websites, or whether it lets them slip because it drives traffic and ultimately profits.
As far as drug use, I don't judge anyone. But, it has to be off social media. It's got to get off social media.
Why do you say that?
Well, there's a lot of kids on social media. There's a lot of impressionable people on social media. There are a lot of people who have never used a narcotic in their life. Do we really want to be turning people who have never touched drugs into addicts because they're curious? And it's suddenly easily accessible?
Well, you've actually met a dealer. Hey, what did they say about this?
Yeah, so following that initial story that we did on the Facebook Marketplace, I've been in touch with a former dealer who used Meta products to sell drugs, including cannabis, LSD, MDMA. I have verified through the courts that he has a whole series of criminal convictions for drugs. And he says that what most of the public won't be aware of is that there is so much available now on social media, and it is any drug you can think of. If you want it, it's out there and it's available.
And didn't he say something like, because you mentioned before they offer delivery as well. It's like an Uber for drugs.
Well, in his words, it's as easy as ordering a pizza. It is, Uber for drugs. He says that in his experience, he felt bulletproof when he was using private groups on Facebook Messenger. That's the platform he used, not Marketplace. He was a bit more stealthy than that. He used private groups on Facebook Messenger to deal his drugs. But he said he felt bulletproof because at no stage did his accounts ever get disabled. At no stage did he believe police or anyone else could get into those groups because he oversaw the membership of those groups. So he felt completely safe. And he has said that he is not aware of any other groups, of which are many around the country, that are selling illegal products. He's not aware of any of those groups being removed either.
It's not just drugs, is it, though? Can you get things like other nefarious items on Facebook Marketplace?
Well, according to my contact, the former drug dealer who says he's now out of the game, you can. You can get firearms, including what he says is a hugely popular drive towards 3D printed guns. Now, these weapons, you may have heard about them before. You get a blueprint, it goes into a printer, and you can create parts made from plastic that are capable of firing real rounds. We know, because I've done reports in the past few months about police raising the alarm about a ramping up of 3D manufactured firearms in New Zealand and those guns being linked to organised crime. There are documented cases, my colleague Jared Savage has done extensive reporting on this as well, where criminals, including in 2023, a 501 deportee was arrested by police for manufacturing 3D printed pistols. I have been unable to verify if, in fact, there are legitimate sellers of 3D guns on social media, but my source says absolutely there are more and more of these firearms groups popping up, he says, on social media where they show images and video of 3D printed guns and offer them for sale.
Wow. And do we call them ghost guns as well? Is that another name?
Yeah, I mean, it's just another term. Essentially, a ghost gun is anything that, a firearm that is privately manufactured, that does not have a serial number and therefore is untraceable. So a ghost gun could be several parts of real firearms which are put together to manufacture something that works, or a ghost gun could be a 3D printed gun that can't be traced.
That's the sort of stuff that really puts pressure on organisations that aren't doing the right thing. And certainly, as Minister of Justice, I'll be asking some tough questions about how's this happening, what's going on. Ultimately, decisions around prosecution are things for police and authorities to make, and I can't, as a politician, interfere with that. But on the surface of it, it's outrageous.
So have you heard from police or even ministers responsible at all?
Well, look, I've spoken to police briefly, and they have sent me a statement about the illegal sales in general, and they are saying that indeed it is an increasing issue, basically putting this down to, more digital use in our worlds, that, illegal sales are increasing. They're also saying that the use of encrypted apps does make it more difficult for police to investigate because they're end-to-end encrypted. And saying that, police are urging anyone in the public who becomes aware of suspicious material being sold on social media to get in touch, because they say that they will investigate. I interviewed last week on Herald Now the Justice Minister Paul Goldsmith about the Facebook Marketplace advertisements, the apparent inaction from Meta, according to my contact in the Bay of Plenty, and he said it was on the face of it outrageous, and that he would be talking to Meta about this and seeking an explanation and asking, in his words, some hard questions of why this multi-billion-dollar tech company is not doing a better job of restricting the sales of illegal drugs.
But it's pretty hard to get Meta to do anything, though, isn't it?
Well, look, I don't work for Meta, but certainly from my experience and when I inquired with Meta as to why they had removed some listings when I contacted them, but why they did nothing when, my contact, Joe Bloggs down in the Bay of Plenty, reported dozens of these, they said, we're not sure why this didn't result in anything happening. We're looking into that. That's all I can really explain, that they have no real explanation for why they did not act on this issue until I got in touch.
Thanks for joining us, Michael.
Pleasure. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of The Front Page. You can read more about today's stories and extensive news coverage at nzherald.co.nz. The Front Page is produced by Ethan Sills and Richard Martin, who is also our editor. I'm Chelsea Daniels. Subscribe to The Front Page on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts, and tune in tomorrow for another look behind the headlines.